and welcome to Deals with Heels, where female entrepreneurs thrive. I'm Debra, your host. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited about this week's episode. We are going to dig in deep and talk about introverts. And you guys know that there's always discussions about whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert. So we're going to really get into how to use all of our introversion as a superpower. And I'm super excited about this week's guest. Stacey Chazin is the founder of the I Factor and is a dynamic leadership coach who empowers introverts to transform their natural qualities into professional assets and get the recognition they deserve. With a master's in organizational development and leadership and certification as Myers-Briggs Type Indicator practitioner, she draws from her extensive corporate and nonprofit experience. She passionately guides introverts towards achieving fulfillment and success, reshaping how introversion is viewed and valued in the workplace. Please welcome Stacey to Deals with Heels.
Thank you, Debra. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you. And I think most people, there's not a question. If you were to line probably 15 people that I know, they would all tell you that I'm an extrovert. And what I will tell you is that I am not a natural extrovert. I'm really good at being an extrovert. And I think that's what people see a lot. When you're out, they see you out. But life is incredibly draining for me. And I spend an incredible amount of time alone and by myself. And I have to have that time to recharge. And the things that really affect my personal bandwidth are not things that are difficult. They just are things that require me to be
Yeah.
on
Sounds
kind
sounds
of.
like you are quite the introvert.
And so my daughter, my oldest daughter, I raised 5 kids, and my oldest daughter tells me that she said she thinks I'm an ambivert, which was a whole new word for me. But the only description really that I gave her was, I'm really good at being an extrovert. I just don't want to most of the time.
Oh, how I would love to unpack that.
So when I talked about that whole introvert, extrovert kind of, or the introverted extrovert and all of the things, I think maybe I'm just an introvert, but I can't tell you the number of people that would argue that I'm not an introvert. Honestly, extroverts do not spend an entire weekend by themselves not talking to other humans. I mean, they seek out activity in my mind. So, Stacey, please fill us in. How do we know if we even are an introvert or an extrovert?
Oh, great question. And I'm excited to dive into all the things you just shared with me. So the textbook definition in Myers-Briggs land, and for any of your audience members who are not familiar with Myers-Briggs, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, is the world's most commonly used personality assessment. And it tells you, it suggests to you what your preferences are in 4 different areas, one of which is how you gain and lose energy with the world. And that speaks to your introversion or extroversion.
Oh,
And I won't get into the others in detail, but just real quick, the others speak to how you take in information, how you make decisions, and how you interact with the world in terms of whether you prefer to plan and have structure or are more spontaneous. But when we're thinking about introversion versus extroversion, it speaks to how you're getting your energy and how you're losing your energy. So you just said you need to recharge on the weekends, right? To be by yourself, to get that energy back. And that's what it means to have a preference for introversion or to be an introvert, that we are fueled by time spent alone, by time when we have an opportunity to go deep into our thoughts, to reflect, to read a book, to really to sit with a problem, to maybe flesh out ideas or flesh out the solution to a problem in writing. That's what's going to define an introvert. And as an introvert, if you certainly can be with other people and out in the world, at a cocktail party, at any type of social event, but those types of things are going to tend to drain you if you do them for too long or you do them without a break. So
a
when you say,
thousand.
like, I can pretend to be an extrovert or I can act extroverted, it's really not acting extroverted as much as you're engaging with the outside world. And what that just means for you as an introvert is It's going to drain your energy a little more. And if you want to feel good and remain physically, psychologically, and emotionally healthy, you're going to need to have more time spent alone when you're recharging than spent time spent socializing and engaging with other people.
They think about a selfie with everyone at the family reunion. It's like Deborah's selfie reunion because I took 70 some selfies. I took one with it. The only people that I didn't get left before the dare. I got everyone. I had to pretend to pick my nose to get this one little girl to take a picture with me, but I was going to get them all. And so to most people, that describes an extrovert because I was willing and able to go do it. And to them, an introvert wouldn't do it.
Well, an introvert can do it, right? You're just gonna, as an introvert, that probably really drained you. Like, were you exhausted afterward?
Probably, this is a long time ago. I probably was, but even like what really made me think about it more than anything else was when I started this podcast. And then I started being a guest on podcasts. So I would have things I would feel drained, but it would be so mixed in with everything else that it's hard to kind of tell what exactly. You just kind of feel like life is draining me. But when I started the podcast, it's something I'm good at and it isn't draining while I'm doing it. It's not difficult to do. But we would record maybe 5 or 6 episodes over a Monday and a Tuesday, and I would be like, "Oh, 2 days down," and then I would by Wednesday, my personal bandwidth is so spent that I'm like, I've got to reschedule things, and then I'm hard on myself because, that's what we are. So I would be hard on myself. Like, I don't understand. You're not sick. Why can't you do it? You're just being lazy. All of the reasons why as women, we would get hard on ourselves. So for me, understanding that, hey, just because you're good at something doesn't mean it doesn't affect you in a way that is like, it's super draining. So now I had a burnout specialist on as a guest, and her idea was to color code my calendar. Y'all don't get all excited thinking I'm going to be time blocking and stuff because that's not true. But time, like things, stoplight colors. So things that were super draining are red. And then things that are okay are yellow, and things that are empowering are green. And so now if I see a week that's super red, and I can't move a lot of it, then I need to move other things proactively because I know I'm going to be recharging on that day, whether I want to or not.
Yeah.
And add a day in on Saturday if that's what you have to do, if your recharge day is going to end up here. And then I'm not so hard on myself because I did it, but explains so much as to why that makes me an introvert. That because I need that recharge time. Even though what I love to do, just I think
Yeah, and I will say to you, you're so right that we as women put all this pressure on ourselves, and pressure. I think societal expectations we hear to do it all, right? Whether it's
yep,
balancing
Supergirl.
motherhood and a career, or if you're just in the career phase of your life and are an empty nester or don't have kids, right? It's being busy all the time. If you're building a business, if you are working a corporate job, whatever it is, if you're not putting in all these hours, you're feeling somehow less than. And I will say that it's not just about being a woman. I think it's also about being an introvert. And that's because workplaces and societal expectations about leadership and success are centered around the extrovert ideal. And that means that when we're thinking about what makes a great leader, what makes a strong entrepreneur, the default answer to those questions aligns with characteristics and traits and behaviors that are all associated with extroversion. And so we hold ourselves up to that standard, right? We should be networking every day, or we should be busy, at every point of the day, building our business, interacting with others, doing as many podcast interviews as we can, for example. And that's how an extrovert is going to be fueled, but not how introverts are going to be successful.
No, I mean, it was such an eye opener for me to understand. Okay, I can see this is what's draining me, but it doesn't make any sense because I'm good at it and it's not difficult for me. And so that makes total sense and helps me find my identity Because for me, I was like, but an extrovert is going to want to be out amongst people and doing things on the weekends,
Well, and they're
whatever.
not going to need to. I like to say need to more
Yeah.
because as introverts, it's not just a want; it's a need for us to stay fueled and energized. And if we want to show up as our best selves Monday morning when we go back to work, we need that weekend to recharge,
And
even more so
it's not a
and more
character
differently than
flaw,
extroverts do.
right? It's not a character flaw to be able to, right?
Exactly right. Yes.
Feels like it's somehow that's a character flaw. That's why I was being hard on myself because I felt like I should be doing this. This is what's expected of me. Yes, I have this work that needs to be done. I should be having appointments and prospecting and doing all of the things when for me self-care is really important. I can almost
Well, let me
because
tell
there
you why.
that's
You're
why I tell
looking
myself.
that way because we as introverts think that we need to network the way extroverts network. And what I mean is, an extrovert will go to a meeting, a cocktail party, a reception, and feel like they need to not just feel like, but they will be energized by meeting 50 people, collecting as many business cards as they can. They'll have conversations with people all over the room. They'll feel really jazzed by it. And those connections will likely serve them well. As introverts, if we try to do that, we will be completely spent. It's going to drain us. We don't generally do not do well with small talk. So the idea, and this is the approach I take with my coaching clients as well. Everything is based in how can you tap into your strengths, the things that you do well when you're doing anything in life, but particularly, and I coach around leadership and being more effective at work.
And that's
So
the thing with me is that I really am good at all that stuff. That's why
you're,
people
you're
would say, yes, so I'm out. I could work that room. I can get all those business cards if that's what I want. But I'm good at that. But man, it really drains me. Boy, my light just
Yeah.
came,
Yeah,
right?
it's going to vary by person, right? Nothing, they're generalizations, right? Nothing is going to be the same for every person, but for the most part, if you're an introvert and let's say you're going to a multi-day conference, I like to say what I advise is for every day you're at a conference, identify 3 people ahead of time who you want to meet. Do your research. We tend to be very good at research and preparing as introverts.
And
Go to their LinkedIn page, go to their website, learn about them, decide for yourself what is it that I want to get out of the conversation with each of these people. So it could be career advice. It could be to talk about a paper they just published. Maybe you want a job with their organization. Prepare ahead of time, and then look for 3 people each day from your list. So if it's a 3-day conference, identify 9 people ahead of time who you want to meet. Take notes after your meeting. So you can follow up thoughtfully via email or on LinkedIn to say, really enjoyed talking about X. And as we discussed, I would love to, whatever your next action step was. And it's going to make you feel like you were a lot more successful because you're able to go deeper in the conversations and be more prepared than if you were just meeting people on the fly.
I definitely do more of that than I do work that entire room. And I do well myself. I use challenge mindset a lot. I was an athlete, so I always take it back to kind of that. But I'll say, okay, I'm going to meet 3 people. I'm going to have 3 conversations before I walk in. I don't know who they're going to be with yet, but I'm going to have 3 conversations with people I've never met, I've
Mm-hmm.
never talked to before. I may have seen them out networking. Because for me, there was nothing worse than walking in when several of my marketing department people were going to be there too, or even people I networking and like the whole state groups are all getting together, right? So you have the opportunity, but everybody's together, right? My whole marketing department's sitting at this table by themselves.
Mm,
And that defeats the purpose of why you're there. So I have always these little goals of, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit with people I don't know,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to have a conversation. My goal is to have conversations with 3 people that I don't know. So I think I am working at like an introvert
Okay.
without even knowing it. I'm taking your introverted vibe.
Oh.
It's my sales coaching and using kind of the same thing. I'm just not thinking of it as introvert extrovert, but I am doing it the way you're advising people to do it. Except for I'm not identifying
Interesting.
them ahead of time because I don't know for sure who's going to be there at a
Yeah.
luncheon, for example. But
Yeah. Yeah. You can't always know that. I mean, oftentimes these days, a conference will have an app where you can see the registration list. But
mm,
you're right. You can't always do that. But to the extent that you can whether it's guessing
Yeah.
who might be there or figuring out who's going to be there. Even if you don't know, limit yourself. Don't try to meet as many people as possible, but say, okay, I want to try to meet 3 people tonight and have a deeper conversation. Interesting.
Her, and she ended up not being there. And so I could have been crushed, y'all. I could have been crushed and not, but I met other people, even though she wasn't there. And turned out I didn't get a lot of great feedback about her. Like her not being there maybe was a good thing. So when I would ask about her, sometimes these people would just get this look on their face like,
Mm,
and I was like, well, maybe she's not the greatest person, or maybe she is. I mean, to have as a podcast, I want it because she's just started this new venture here. The entrepreneurial part of it has me, right? And so
yeah.
I don't just want a government official, I'm wanting an entrepreneur in that space also. So I think, but with,
So something got in the way of what your plan was for the day,
yes,
and then you have trouble with the fact that it's
that's
messed
what
up
I,
your plan.
yeah, like it's it for that, whatever that time slot. Like I have something for like later in the day, but I have these 2 hours. I feel like I must use them for something, but my thing's gone. That's like my ADHD almost, but it's hard sometimes to fill that space with something else because I had it in my mind I was going to do this.
Mm. Yeah. I don't know if that's associated with your introversion, or I would guess. Have you ever had a Myers-Briggs assessment done?
I have not.
No. Okay. So the last pair of letters are judging and perceiving. And someone with a preference for judging, and I have that, is you have a very strong preference for being planful. You like to know what your day is gonna hold. If you have a big project, you like to map out all the steps and when you're going to do them and how you're going to do them. And then someone with the opposite preference, which is called perceiving, they thrive more on spontaneity. They like to make decisions in the moment. They'll wake up in the morning and say, okay, I know I have this long-term project. Here's what I feel like. Here's how I feel like tackling it today. And that kind of fuels them. And that's the way they lean. So I
Hmm.
would guess that you have a preference for judging, that you like to know what your day holds.
And
And when the plan changes for reasons outside of your control, it throws you a bit.
it does. I definitely see that. I'm a very creative person, so step by step doesn't always work for me. I like to have it a little loosey goosey, but I want my loosey goosey to be right then. So
Interesting.
a lot of the personalities, and I do buying personalities with sales coaching. So if I know how I'm communicating, how that person likes for me to communicate with them and how they make decisions, whether that's emotionally or bottom line or social proof or whatever those things are, then I can better and more easily sell to them. And I'm so close between that assertive, competitive, because maybe because I was an athlete, but also the thinker,
Hmm.
that it's real, they butt heads. So I'm like, no, I still want all the information. I just want it right now.
Yeah.
Right. But some of the planning and like my little comment about the time blocking, because you can't time block creativity, you have to have open, and it is a struggle for somebody that does analytical things too, but the creativity part requires introversion. You have to think about it. You have to have that little bit of it. And it's very empowering when it's really charged and going.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I love that you said that, because I think a lot of people think they equate creativity with extroversion, that you're coming up with big ideas and sharing them with the world. And the fact is, you hit that right. You hit the nail on the head, that especially for introverts, right? We're going to be our most creative and our most innovative when we have time to think on our own, to sit with it.
I
Yeah.
love that.
That's an
So
introvert to a T.
I tell you what, people would fight you saying that about me.
That's funny.
Because I'm like, you guys just don't understand the way I am not an extrovert in the sense that you're thinking of. You're just thinking of when you see me out, that's how I am. I'm not the person that's afraid to talk to people. That's what I think they think
Right.
of always with an introvert. And sometimes it is. And you have lots of tips for helping that person that has trouble coming out of their shell, using that in their favor working with it. Give us some of what those tips are that you have for those
Yeah,
types
so
of
first and
introverts.
foremost, it's really important to let the people who you work with, the people who you're engaging with, let them know what you need to be successful, right? And you don't necessarily need to say I am an introvert. I think that sometimes when we do that, there's still so much stigma associated with that word that people might.
Or even arguing. If I said that, they would be like, please,
That's
Deborah.
right. So what you can say, and I recommend the first time a team comes together, for example, on a project or a team is forming for the first time, for everyone to go around the room and share with the rest of the group, what do you want everyone here to know about what you need to be successful, what you need to do your best work? And for introverts, that's likely going to be something like, I need to have a balance of collaborative and alone work time, or I need the opportunity to submit my ideas, share my ideas with you all in writing. Extroverts are good at thinking out loud, coming up with ideas on the spot. We're going to come up with ideas that are just as good, if not better, but we're going to do that if we have time to sit with them. And often if we have time to share them in writing or in a one-on-one conversation rather than in a big room. So that's the
Okay.
first thing. The
Makes
next
perfect
thing
sense.
is seize those opportunities for yourself. So writing tends to be a strength of a lot of introverts, in part because it lets you sit with your ideas. It lets you work on your thoughts in a way and review them and make sure they're right on target. So look for opportunities to contribute ideas strategically, creatively, innovatively in writing. And that could be an email to your team. It could be maybe curate a blog or submit to other people's blogs, submit a piece you can post on sites, public posting sites like Medium, where you can go and share an article and position your thought leadership or your creativity or innovation in some way. So that's another big one.
I
Um,
love that.
and then the third one I'll highlight is introverts tend to be highly empathetic. We are very good at understanding other people's emotions, about picking up on nuances in the room, picking up on body language and nonverbal cues. And I encourage you, to all you introverts out there, to tap into those skills and find ways to use them. So, for example, you're highly empathetic, you would probably be really good at conflict mediation. Or if there's a disagreement going on your team, you're very good at reading between the lines, picking up on what people's priority values and needs are, and then stepping in either in writing or verbally to mediate, to share a solution that might resolve where everyone is and in a way that's going to meet people's needs.
And that's so perfect because I definitely am very empathetic. I can tell when somebody's upset, and I've gotten rid of all my people pleasing ways that wants to fix it all. Just took, 57 years to get rid of them. But and I think so for me, all of that makes sense, except I'm a good communicator. And so that communication makes me be able to communicate and talk, right?
Mm,
And I won't feel one way or the other about it. I'll
hmm
just answer it directly.
hmm
But my normal stay is this. And so lots of times people, when I need processing time, but I don't take it, I
hmm
answer the question and
Why? Why do you think that is?
expectations of what somebody
Because you
else.
feel the pressure to
Right,
answer right
right,
away.
that expectation instead of, and what I've found is if I don't speak my initial thing out loud, right, my initial response out loud, if I wait and don't say it, I'll let
hmm
them, that gives me time to process. Because by the time I process, I will come around to the real way that I think about that, whatever that situation is. But my initial reaction, because they've caught me off guard and I'm not in my normal element, and that they automatically think I'm angry
It's interesting.
or I'm
Mm,
upset,
yeah.
kind of nerd, scientific,
Yeah.
internal. It's a very internal, and they project a way of feeling on me that I don't feel. But I think that it's like for me, if I would accept that introvertedness and let myself process and say, I'm going to need some time to think about that.
Well, that's exactly right. Right. Because they're not mind readers. And because the societal norms and business norms are coming up with ideas right away, engaging with people all the time, tell them. Say, I'd like to give that some more thought. I need to sit with that a bit and I'll get back to you. Or even I'll get back to you by this time or this date. Let them know so that they're not telling themselves a story, right? When we don't have an explanation for something, for why Deborah's not speaking up, people will make up a narrative in their head and, oh, well, she hates me, or she's mad at me, or she thinks I'm not doing a good job. Don't give them the opportunity to tell themselves a story. Tell them what the reason is, right?
Right. And so it makes me, I'm much better at it than I used to be, but it makes me so uncomfortable for them to just be waiting. And they're used to me being able to respond quickly. But in that instance, I can't. Like it never works out well, Stacey. It never works out well when if I just give myself time to process. So I love that, being brave enough to just say it. And
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Tell people
I
what you need,
love
tell people why you're speaking or not speaking, and then they'll begin to understand their expectations will change.
They will. And their expectations that we probably helped people set about us because we didn't know any better when we were teaching them how to communicate with us, because that's what we do by setting those expectations. Now you have, in fact, where I'm running out of time because we're off on the whole, but I think people are confused about what an introvert really is. And I hopefully even just because I obviously what I initially say may turn out to be a fantastic, the very best idea and plan we could have. But my best state is if you give me time to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. That's right.
Introverts unite.
That's right.
I love it. So tell us, I really want my audience to find out about your services and how they can download. You have a free meeting playbook for introverts, right?
I do. If folks go to my website, which is ifactorleadership.com, there's a free resources tab at the top. And one of the resources there is a meetings playbook for introverts, 10 ways to have your voice heard and your ideas shine, includes strategies for how do you speak up in meetings, or even contribute ideas in ways that are make you have to speak up, but you can do in writing or submit afterward. Great ways to interject and share your expertise, have your ideas respected. There's also a conference survival guide on that page, which includes networking strategies. How can you go to a big conference and not feel drained by it? And another resource folks might be interested is there's a negotiating guide. How do you negotiate for yourself at work as an introvert, whether it's asking for a raise or a promotion in ways that are going to tap into your strengths as an introvert so that you're more likely to get a yes as the answer. And then I also offer a free 30-minute call where I help you to begin to discover what your unique introverted strengths are. And then you can begin to use those in your leadership. So all the information about that is on my website, ifactorleadership.com. I would love to connect.
So valuable. So valuable. I think we all have some introverted traits that we're not confident about.
Mm.
And even if you think you're an extrovert, and I encourage you to check out her stuff because I spent a lot of my life thinking I was an extrovert, but then being uncomfortable later at how I was an extrovert and analyzing and over analyzing. And I don't think real extroverts do that. I think that's an introverted thing,
For the most part, yeah, I agree with that.
because they're so empowered by being an extrovert. How could I think twice about what I said or did because I feel so great just that I was doing it?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are introverted because they are thoughtful and they have plans and they come up with all of big ideas and they get kind of lost in that, forced into extroverted, and they don't have that piece of it. And it's hard to find coaches and that are able to diagnose and pull that out of you. So check out Stacey's stuff. I will link to all of it in the show notes for you so you can get it there. And you can always link to my stuff, my agency, hexagonmedia.net, my free ebook, 5 Steps to Having a Mindset for Success. And of course, the Deals with Hills website, and all of those things will be in the show notes as well. So until next week, Stacey, you were an amazing guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It was so much fun to speak with you, and I hope we've cleared up some of the confusion.
I'm sure that you gave such great examples and completely diagnosed and let me know all of my stuff. And I am great So grateful to have all that information. So everyone, please check out her stuff. And until next week, we're out.
Thank you.